Before I give it to Emma, I want to modify my words a little bit. I don't think it's the one currency system that is doomed to fail. I think it's the one monetary policy for two different economies that is doomed to fail. Because if you price everything in gold or in Bitcoin, coin, I don't think it's money, but gold for the sake of this example, I think it would actually increase the visibility and the transparency into the different productivity system and cost. So basically, if buying a chair in South Africa costs you one token or 1 gram of gold, and it would cost you two in Germany, then you would see trade flows go towards South Africa. And so I don't think it's the one currency that is the problem, because having a reference base, just like a metric system for everything, might not be a bad idea. I think it's particularly when you're trying to have the monopoly and on the supply of that currency in particular. So yeah, go ahead, Emma.
Well said. You actually took the words right out of my mouth. So I like to use as an example, and you actually, I think, referenced it quickly, is like Greece and Turkey. Turkey's on the lira. Imagine, okay, so if I'm in Greece and I want to buy a turkey sandwich, it's going to cost me, no pun intended, it's going to cost me like $7. Or I can just walk across the border over to Greece and get it for 50 cents equivalent. So when you have one monetary policy and a bunch of different fiscal policies and a bunch of different growth rates of economies, it doesn't work. It screws productivity and it screws the people ultimately. It's just not a sensible way to operate.
So I think we visualized already two things. The first one is that monetary policy is not perfect. And second is that making the problem bigger by taking care of the short term to the expense of the longer term is not a good solution. And the second one was, if the Americas and the central banks are increasingly talking about being data driven and following a dot plot and so on and so forth, then why don't they show us what the algorithm is, so that at least everybody knows what the lecture of the data should be? Because the thing is, you cannot say you're data driven and at the same time leave room to only the professionals to know what the Fed is likely to do. I think that's another question that smart contracts are kind of addressing, in terms of when you are in the credibility of central banks, is that at some point, if they do pretend to be data driven or having certain rules, then they should be able to put them in a smart contract and then modify them as it goes. You cannot be picking and choosing, and then at some point saying we're just following the Taylor rule, and then at some other point saying we're following this other rule. So I think that's also what the concept of algorithmic stable coins are based on. In theory, I don't believe in any of those, because it still remains just abstract numbers. There's absolutely no grounding onto why you would accept one algorithmic stablecoin rather than another.